WSA Voices is a podcast by West Sound Academy, an international baccalaureate world school for grades 6 through 12 located in Poulsbo, Washington. Welcome to the very first episode of WSA Voices. My name is Luca Brambilla. I am the host of this podcast and a teacher in the science department at West Sound Academy. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this podcast today. The goal of this podcast is to provide a platform for faculty, staff, and current students at West Sound Academy and alumni to share their stories and experience from their time at West Sound Academy. The idea for this podcast actually originally came as a result of when I was first applying for this job a few years back. I was looking into the website of West Sound and I found this little section called WSA Voices. And in that section, I remember seeing a video of Karen, a current teacher in the science department, and a video of Ben, the math teacher here at West Sound Academy. And I just remember them talking about their experience at West Sound, what it means to be a West Sound teacher, and what it means to be a teacher here in Kitsap County, Washington. And I just remember that so fondly. And I'm just so excited to be able to continue this experience and to be able to continue this overall. And so this is where the inspiration for this podcast came from. Now, this episode is going to be a slightly different episode, of course, as the introductory episode. So it's going to have a slightly different format to what you will come to expect from WSA Voices. But normally, what I plan to have on this podcast is I will have a guest over on this podcast. This guest may be a current faculty member, staff member of West Sound, or a current student from any of the grades here, 6th through 12th grade, or an alumnus or an alumni from previous years here at West Sound Academy. So you'll be expecting a person to be interviewed here, and I want them to be able to share their experience, talk about their time at West Sound Academy, talk about overall how they came to be a student or a teacher or staff member here at West Sound Academy, and how their lives have been since, and if especially for alumni, how their college or post high school experience has been. So just overall, this is what the podcast is aiming to be like, and I'm just super excited for upcoming episodes and upcoming things. So yeah, overall, like I said, this first episode, I wanted to just share a little bit about what this podcast is going to be like. And in the next part, I'm going to just briefly introduce my story as a part of the West Sound community. As many of you know, I was born and raised in a small town north of Milan in Italy. I spent my childhood in this small town, population about the same size of Poulsbo here, so actually really similar to it. And I did my elementary and my middle school all in that small town with most of the same classmates. And it was a pretty decent sized elementary school and middle school. We had about 3 sections of the same grades in each elementary and middle school, so decent size overall. And then for high school, there was not a high school per se in our town, so there was like a bunch of different regional high schools in that area. So I've loved science ever since I was in elementary school. And in Italy, you get to decide what kind of subject you want to focus your high school experience on. And you can choose anywhere from like languages and arts to music to STEM, and more specifically, sciences and computer science. So that is what I decided to pursue in my high school career. And I narrowed it down to a couple of schools and decided to attend a decent sized high school, about 1,500 students in a nearby town. And the high school was called a high school of applied sciences. So as the name suggests, we had a ton of classes that focused on sciences, applied sciences and labs, and also computer science. And we also had, of course, other classes, mainly, languages and philosophy, history, math, of course, and things like that. But overall, a lot of the emphasis was placed on STEM, as in mostly chemistry, biology, and computer sciences. And I did my first 3 years in Italy. And then at the end of the third year of high school, I decided to be a part of an exchange student program. So if you've been a part of the West Sound community, a lot of exchange students ever since I've been here in the past 3 years. We've had a lot of exchange students from all over the world, and it's always something that fascinates me, and I'm really always curious and happy to welcome international students because I was once an international student, an exchange student. So at the end of my third year of high school in Italy, I decided that I wanted to embark on that adventure, and I decided to, apply to a program and be a part of it. And unlike some programs, a specific program I was a part of, actually, you couldn't really choose where you were placed. It was more of if there was a host family in an area of the US, you could then be placed with them. So the way that that worked is in September, actually, right at the beginning of the school year, I got a call and I was placed with a family in West Virginia. So within 2 days, I had my bags packed up, and I was on a plane headed to West Virginia. More like actually 4 different planes because there was a few layovers in the process. But that started my adventure as an exchange student in a small town in West Virginia. So all the way over on the East Coast of the United States. And I spent my fourth year of high school in West Virginia. I actually, due to like some, regulations and things like that in that specific high school, I was placed in the 11th grade because they wouldn't let students be placed in the 12th grade. But I was placed in the 11th grade formally, but actually attended a lot of classes with 12th graders. So it was a little bit of a hybrid system. So I spent the next 9 or 10 months or so over in a small high school in West Virginia with about 300 students overall, a small public high school over in West Virginia. And it was such an amazing experience. I got to take a lot of different classes from chemistry, biology to even computer science. So, kind of like continuing the trend that I had done in high school in Italy, but also focusing more on just some labs and applied sciences, just like I had done in Italy. And it was an amazing experience, and just met a ton of people that I'm still in touch with, and my host family especially. And as those of you that know me personally know, that's how I've met my wife. And long story, obviously we'll come to more details soon, but that's how Liz and I met first. She was a 12th grader, senior at the high school in West Virginia that I was being an exchange student at. So at the end of that exchange student year, so we're talking about June of 2014, 2015, actually June of 2015, I had to go back to Italy. High school in Italy is 5 years. So it's not 4 years like here, it's five. Therefore, after 4 years, I had to come back to Italy and finish my high school diploma in Italy. So the fifth year of high school was probably one of my favorite ones. It was just a culmination of different things. All the subjects kind of sort of came together overall, and we had this big thesis and big final project and final, nationwide test that everybody takes. For those of you that may know, it's called Maturità. That is the final exam that everybody takes, and there is a essay writing portion, there is a math section specifically for the applied sciences, then there is a computer science section, and then an oral exam that is sort of like summarizing everything that you've learned in the last 4 5 years of your high school career. So that was a really cool experience, and a little intimidating, and overall I have a lot of fond memories of the time. So after that, and during my senior year, obviously I was planning on applying to colleges, and I had several different options. But one that I really stuck with me from my exchange year was there was this opportunity for a scholarship at a college in West Virginia, specifically Marshall University, and it was an amazing opportunity. And it was open to international students, which was, pretty rare, especially at the time. So I was, through different application processes and interviews, I was able to secure that scholarship and be able to move to the US for longer term, at least for the duration of my college career at Marshall University in West Virginia. Those of you that follow college football may recognize the name Marshall University. They made a movie about it a few years ago, and it is a pretty decent size school with about 15,000 students. And following in the paths of my high school career, I decided to major in biology. At that time I wasn't really sure exactly what specifically I wanted to do with biology, but I just knew that I really liked science. I really liked biology, chemistry, physics, and math. So I really was really into those types of sciences, especially applied sciences with labs. So I spent 4 years at Marshall University, where I graduated with a bachelor's in biology with a few different minors here and there. I've always been really interested in other subjects like philosophy and chemistry and things like that. So I definitely took a lot of different classes, and definitely got to meet and learn a bunch of new things and meet with a lot of people that I still talk to this day. And it's been a really important part of my life. And then after 4 years at Marshall University in West Virginia, I graduated in 2020. So not a great year to graduate, and not a graduation ceremony, obviously, in 2020, but it still very fondly. And luckily, I guess in my case, my college experience was mostly regular, with the exception of the last semester of senior year, due to, as we all know, extenuating circumstances outside of our control. So in 2020, then Liz and I decided to move to New York City. We had, between my junior and senior year of college, I did an internship in New York City at a school of medicine and a lab over in New York City, and I decided to accept an offer for graduate school in New York City, and we moved there in the summer of 2020. And it was definitely a different time in 2020 than it was before, and it is now. Obviously, lots of different reasons, and we spent 3 years in living in New Jersey and working or studying either in New Jersey or Manhattan. And we spent between from 2020 to 2023 over there, and that's where I was able to get my master's in biomedical sciences, working in a lab in virology. There's a lot of small anecdotes and stories that I usually share with my students about my time there. A lot of really cool experiences and opportunities that I will be forever thankful for. And that really just solidified my love for science, but also it really solidified how much I enjoy teaching and sharing knowledge, and just overall looking at curriculum and finding ways to explain hard concepts to people. And as a graduate student, I had tons of opportunities doing that for mentees and for undergraduate students and other people that were visiting the lab or that I was training. So that was really such an amazing opportunity to hone those skills and to really develop a love for teaching that just overall increased over those 3 years working in New York City. At the same time, I was also tutoring both for the ACT, SAT, and for college classes and high school science classes. So just overall, those two things together just came together to just really form that love for teaching that ever since I've been trying to grow and grow here at West Sound, and it's that's been the perfect environment for that. So come 2023. Liz and I, for work reasons and for different reasons, we decided to move out here. And Liz had a job offer from a company out here, and I was looking, before we even moved, for different opportunities to work in this area in Kitsap County. And I remember just I knew I loved to teach, and I knew I wanted to share my love for teaching and science with students. And the first time I looked on Google Maps and I found West Sound Academy, and then I looked on their website. And as I shared in the beginning of the video of this podcast, I found those WSA Voices videos, and specifically the one from Ben and Karen. And it just really, I was amazed, and just I had never seen or heard of a school that worked this well and just wanted to share the love of learning with students in such an open way, and just being so transparent about it. And I remember seeing that they had a job opening for a science teacher, and I couldn't have been more ecstatic. And you can, talk to Liz about this as well, and she will tell you the same thing. And I just remember applying for the job, and of course interviewing remotely on Zoom, as I was still in New York City at that time, and just doing the different interviews, talking to other teachers there, and I was really fortunate to be able to have the job and moving to this area. We moved to Washington about a few days before the school year started, so it was a very rapid transition from living on the East Coast to moving to Washington. We drove across the country. It was just the two of us and our two gerbils at the time. And it was just a lot of fun driving across the country and moving to Washington. We had visited Washington before. We knew we loved the state. We're both into hiking, camping, mountains, and any outdoor activities. So Washington did seem like the perfect place for us. And I remember a few years ago, we went on vacation and just, to Mount Rainier and North Cascades. And we took the ferry to Bainbridge Island. And at that time, living somewhere like this seemed such a remote possibility for us. And it's just looking back at it, we just, went on Bainbridge and just walked around, and it felt so surreal and beautiful. And I hope I never take that for granted anytime. And it's been, we've been here for 3 years, and every day just looking at the pine trees and the mountains seems, all of this seems amazing. So, but as a side note, coming back to West Sound, I started my teaching here at West Sound in the fall of 2023. And my first year, I was teaching physics for the 9th and 10th grade. I was teaching 2 sections of that, and then marine biology for the 6th and 7th grade, and physical health and wellness for the 6th grade. So my first year, I had physics, marine biology, and physical health and wellness. And then at the end of the first year, for June term, Miss Bernice and I teamed together to create what's been now known as June Hikes, which is the outdoors, opportunity that students have at the end of the year to spend a few days hiking in nature, learning about nature journaling, learning about the nature around us, and just overall, just honing in their hiking outdoors and identifying plants and all those skills that are ever important in a place like Washington. Then my second year at West Sound, I started teaching chemistry, again for the 9th and 10th grade. And then I started teaching Algebra 2 for the 10th grade, and Earth Science for the 6th and 7th grade, as well as Physical Health and Wellness for the 6th and 7th grade. So adding in that extra layer of math there for the 10th grade really actually helped a lot when it comes to like interdisciplinary connections. There is obviously a lot of subjects that use math, and it really helps when one also teaches math to some of the same students that you're teaching physics and chemistry to. So that was a really super interesting connection there. And as well as last year, as well as the first year last year, we did June hikes as well for June term. And last year, I remember it was particularly special because right around the time that June hikes started and ended, that was sort of the due date for my first daughter. She ended up being born later in that same month, so it never actually conflicted with June hikes. But I remember every time that I was on a hike out there, I always had in mind the fact that at any point I could have had to turn around and, be there for the birth of my daughter. So that was a really special time. And it worked out that way, that she was born later, and we were able to also do June hikes. So June hikes is always such a cool opportunity, and June term overall here at West Sound, it's one of my favorite moments overall of the year. And this year, as my 3rd year teaching West Sound, and I am teaching physics, and I'm teaching 8th grade science, that is the integrated experimental sciences class, and then I'm also teaching Algebra 2 and 11th grade IB biology. So this year started teaching more the IB classes, and it's been really interesting seeing that besides having some of the same classes for 3 years now and seeing the students grow over the course of the 3 years, but also tapping into that IB, the International Baccalaureate program, it's just been really, really interesting seeing all that's been built in grades 6 through 10 culminate and kind of funnel into what it is the IB program, especially for something as interdisciplinary as biology is. So I'm just really looking forward to delve more into that program and just look more into it in the years to come. Another important thing at West Sound that I've gotten to be able to do and share with students is student council, which is an important club here at West Sound Academy, where we've been tasked with organizing the school after school activities such as school dances, movie nights, and other. We've recently hosted a haunted house, so that's really been a platform for students to have a leadership opportunity in organizing events and school-wide gatherings, and that's been really successful. And I'm really always so proud of all the students coming together, and it's very much student-led. I am supervising and I'm their advisor, but it's all the initiatives and all the work is done by students, and they've over the last 3 years it's always been a really nice cycle of leadership and mentors, overseeing mentees, and it's just been amazing to see for the students. So overall, that is my story as a teacher at West Sound. And there is so many more details. And those of you that have me as a teacher know that I do small bits of like entry questions sometimes in class where I reveal some random trivia or piece of information. And I do the same when it comes to like students. They do that as well in my classes. And it's just, I love hearing stories that people have, and I love hearing how people have come to be a part of the West Sound community. And I think that there is a lot of value in that, and just learning about our stories and how we all came to be a part of this amazing learning community. Just as a spoiler for future episodes, I do plan on asking people and the guests of this episode two recurring questions. The first one is, what is their favorite memory at West Sound Academy? And the second one is more of a trivial one, but what is your favorite part of campus? So I will start with the latter. My favorite part of campus is, and I may be biased for that because I work in a class that faces it, but I love, especially in the mornings and like the mid-fall mornings, like October mornings, when outside of the windows in Lower Ryan, you can see the big, evergreen tree and the sport court, but then the sun is rising and the sky is orange or red, and it's just such a peaceful and amazing view that you get to see. A lot of classes get to see that view, and a lot of our windows face that way, and it's beautiful, and I love that every time, even when it's not a crystal clear morning or beautiful sky. And in terms of favorite memories at West Sound, I mean, I will admit it's not an easy question to answer, and there's so many ones. I will pick two. I will kind of bypass that one and just say two. One of them is, and we actually did this recently, I always love the egg drop in physics class. So at the end of like one of the first few units in physics, we usually do an egg drop to test our what we've learned about free fall, acceleration, and force. And it's always one of my favorite activities that we do. And it's amazing how with the same materials every year, students have different ideas and students have different strategies that they apply to the building an egg drop device from the top of the stairs all the way down to the ground. And they've, over the years, students have made incredible little devices in just a few minutes, or 30 minutes or so, with very limited materials, and that's by design. So it's always such a test of ingenuity and of creative thinking. So that's one of my favorite things. The other one is related to June term and in June hikes. I think that overall, one of my favorite memories, and I think a lot of students have shared that memory too, is the hike to Green Mountain, especially when you come up from the trail and there is a nice viewpoint where there is a little bench almost close to the top. And every year we've done this, it's been the most beautiful weather, like 75, clear skies and sunny, and you can see the mountains from it. And it's a pretty tough hike. I mean, it's no Mount Everest, but it is not a walk in the park. And it's always just that feeling of accomplishments and that feeling of you've done it, you've made it. And I like to use that as a metaphor of learning. a lot of the classes that I teach can be tough when it comes to math, when it comes to critical thinking and just reasoning through things. But when you make it out of like, that tough part where you're struggling with formulas, or you're struggling with grasping some concept, what I hope to give to students is that feeling of, hey, I've made it. I can see past the forest, I can see the mountains, I can see everything from there, and I've made it to the top. So that's kind of a metaphor for that, what I try and achieve in the classes that I teach. So overall, as I said, this episode was a slightly different format of an episode, but my hope is that in the upcoming episodes, we will have people that I will interview, and they'll get to share their stories about their West Sound Academy experience. And I'm recording this, of course, in November, so there's a lot of upcoming breaks, a lot of upcoming things to look forward to. We have Thanksgiving break and winter break coming up. And one thing that just I want to put on everybody else's radar is we are, here in the spring semester, we usually do the ERPs, so the extended research projects at West Sound Academy. And that is, also one of my favorite memories, like hearing the students' extended research projects. And I just think that that's such a cool thing that we do as a West Sound community. And yeah, every grade does a different subject and a different approach to them. And I personally am tasked with the 8th grade science ERPs, so I really look forward to seeing their experiment. So thank you all so much for listening, and I'm excited for the next upcoming episodes. And if you have any questions or any suggestions, you know how to reach me. So thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of WSA Voices. Be sure to check back for another episode in the near future. Until next time.